They dragged Ruun'Kav into the Hall of Verdicts, his body half broken and barely recognizable beneath fused armor plates that clung to his charred skin. Hunters of the Dominion were legendary for their resilience. They walked into the hall even when bleeding from mortal wounds. To be carried was a mark reserved only for those who had lost limbs or consciousness. Ruun'Kav had lost his arm, half his face, and nearly his life. Yet he forced himself upright the moment the guard set him down. His one unsealed eye glared defiantly at the semicircle of elders awaiting his account. Grand Elder Vrantor observed him with cool scrutiny, his crest rising in solemn acknowledgement. Ruun'Kav returns bearing grievous wounds. Such scars speak of formidable prey, do they not? His tone carried neither admiration nor pity, only a demand for truth. Elder Malrith, known for his harsh judgments, clicked his mandibles in disapproval. But they speak of a hunter who misjudged his quarry. We shall determine which. Ruun'Kav steadied himself, clutching the fractured remains of his war-tied armor. The ceremonial record could not begin until the tribunal completed their inspection, so he endured as they circled him, documenting each melted seam and shattered conduit. Every mark on his gear told a fragment of a story. The scorched shoulder plates struck by shrapnel, the cracked visor melted into his brow ridge, the severed straps that once anchored his cloak. The elders read these marks as scholars read ancient texts, searching for evidence of skill or failure. When they finished, Grand Elder Vrantor inclined his head. You may speak. Tell us the nature of your hunt. Ruun'Kav drew a trembling breath. The chamber fell silent. The species calls itself humans. A quiet wave of interest passed through the gathered onlookers. New prey always stirred attention. Discovery was the Dominion's pride. Malrith's eyes narrowed with expectation. A fresh line. Continue. Ruun'Kav's voice rasped like metal scraping stone. I tracked them on the world they name Illustra, 4, where 2 human clans wage ceaseless war. I believe their conflict would provide an ideal hunting ground. Chaos masking my approach, desperation sharpening their responses. Shame flickered briefly across his battered features. I misjudged everything. He spoke of moving through the dense woodland, cloaked in silence, observing an isolated human squad. 8 targets. Their crude metal armor and simple rifles suggested modest skill. He saw no tactical genius, no exceptional strength, only weary soldiers resting beside scorched tree trunks. Confident in his stealth, he drew his sunflower repeater, released a single radiant bolt, and killed one instantly. An honorable beginning, Vrantor murmured. Ruun'Kav shook his head. It was the last moment that resembled any hunt I have ever known. He described how the sky began to scream, an unnatural roar growing from the distance. Before he could relocate, explosive rounds descended like iron rain. They did not target the squad. They targeted everything. The forest convulsed under relentless impact, torn apart by waves of fire and shock. Entire acres vanished in seconds. Only his reinforced armor kept him alive, though it melted into his hide under the assault. He recounted hiding behind a ruined trunk to stabilize a breach in his suit when he noticed a faint buzzing. A small winged machine hovered above him, its single lens reflecting his silhouette. It was not a living creature, yet watched with unmistakable purpose. Moments later, humans opened fire, unleashing a torrent of metal. The air itself became a deadly current, each projectile slamming into his armor with enough force to stagger him. I destroyed the flying machine and attempted retreat, he said, pain thickening his voice. But they had already marked the region. More explosives fell, smaller, numerous, designed not for precision, but for saturation. They burst above the ground, scattering lethal fragments across vast stretches. He gestured weakly toward the stump where his arm had once been. The tribunal absorbed the implication in heavy silence. Ruun'Kav continued, explaining that humans had not shown surprise, fear, or confusion. They simply shifted tactics with chilling efficiency. Larger aircraft swept overhead, igniting the forest with streams of incandescent fire. Whatever survived the earlier bombardment perished in those flames. I fled because death was certain, he admitted. A ripple of disapproval stirred, but no elder interrupted. They advanced with machines, armor, and relentless speed. Even those on foot closed distances with terrifying endurance. Every step I took, they anticipated. He finished with the moment he reached his damaged ship, barely escaping further bombardment. The humans never confirmed he existed. They continued their assault solely because an unidentified presence had been detected. Exhausted, Ruun'Kav met the gaze of the tribunal. These beings do not behave as prey. They do not defend. They annihilate. The final words fell into the echoing stillness, leaving the hall suspended between disbelief and dawning comprehension, every listener aware that something unprecedented had entered their world. The tribunal absorbed Ruun'Kav's words, but Elder Malrith demanded clarity. Describe the escalation, he pressed, leaning forward as his crest lowered in predatory anticipation. The request forced Ruun'Kav to relive every moment he had tried to bury, yet the ritual demanded completeness. Failure to deliver a full account would tarnish not only his name, but the honor of his entire Forge clan. He steadied his breath, though each inhale scraped painfully against scorched flesh. What I faced after the initial bombardment reshaped my understanding of warfare, he said. Humans did not advance as prey. They moved as a force designed to devour uncertainty. He explained how the first cluster detonations shredded both terrain and hopes of recovery. Even as he attempted emergency repairs on his mantle, the ground continued to tremble. Humans did not pause after delivering destruction. They pressed forward, using devastation as a tactical advantage. Through the smoke, he heard engines, harsh, mechanical, unlike anything crafted by the Dominion. Machines thundered across the ruined forest, their tracks crushing molten soil beneath iron weight. At first, he glimpsed silhouettes, bulky armored vehicles pushing aside flaming debris, smaller machines darting between them like pack hunters, infantry weaving through the chaos with breathtaking synchronization. Their unity was unnatural, unbroken by fear or hesitation. Not once did they stop to confirm kills. They simply advanced, as if overwhelming the land itself would guarantee victory. Ruun'Kav's claws curled against the floor as memory washed over him. They moved with purpose, not emotion. Even the lesser soldiers displayed a discipline I had never witnessed among new species. Their movements were calculated, their communication instantaneous. I could not understand their words, but the efficiency was unmistakable. To illustrate, he told of the moment he tried to bypass them by slipping through a ravine. He believed the narrow terrain would mask his approach, but humans anticipated this vector. Before he traveled half its length, he heard rhythmic impacts. Artillery shells slammed into the cliffs above, raining stone fragments that tore into his armor. Humans did not merely react to threats. They predicted possibilities. It was not instinct. It was doctrine. He described seeing a group of humans in heavy suits resembling walking fortresses. Their armor emitted faint mechanical hums, and each carried a weapon the size of Ruun'Kav's torso. They fired in controlled bursts that melted rock and shredded trees as though sculpting new terrain. Behind them advanced others in lighter armor, sprinting tirelessly despite carrying equipment heavier than their bodies. Ruun'Kav had tracked many species over his lifetime, yet he had never encountered one capable of such endurance. It was as if humans possessed an inexhaustible well of motion. Even more unsettling were the small devices they deployed. Some flew low, scanning the ground. Others perched upon debris like metallic insects, pulsing with pale lights. One emitted a piercing tone that disoriented him, making his limbs feel uncoordinated. He realized humans did not rely on sight alone. They layered their perception through countless machines, forming an invisible web no hunter could slip through. When he had finally broken from the ravine, he encountered a firestorm unleashed by passing aircraft. The Sky Rippers released streams of burning chemicals that turned entire stretches into rivers of flame. Heat waves rolled through the air, distorting vision and warping metal. Ruun'Kav admitted that he barely survived by plunging into a shallow ditch, allowing fire to glide over him like the breath of a planetary furnace. Elder Vrantor glanced at the scorched edges of the hunter's mantle. Your cloak melted at 4 distinct points. Fire of such intensity is rarely survivable. His voice held admiration rather than doubt. Ruun'Kav nodded weakly. I survived only because their attention lay elsewhere. They did not hunt me specifically. They hunted the concept of intrusion. His gaze hardened as he spoke. Humans eliminated everything that might conceal an enemy. Every tree, every ridge, every shadow. They destroyed cover before combat even began. Their philosophy is annihilation as prevention. Malratha's expression shifted from skepticism to contemplative dread. To fight such a species, he murmured, is to stand before an avalanche. Ruun'Kav continued, recounting how he finally reached his vessel, a battered silhouette half buried in debris. Smoke seeped from its engines, and half its external plating glowed faintly where ordnance had struck. As he approached, another wave of bombardment pounded the region. Humans did not intend to confirm his death. They intended to guarantee nothing within the radius could exist. He forced his way aboard, sealing the hatch moments before a blast flung the ship sideways. Systems flickered, engines groaned, but the vessel held long enough for him to escape the atmosphere. He watched from orbit as humans continued firing into the remains of the forest, ensuring no possibility of survival. Ruun'Kav concluded his account with a steady resignation. They were not chasing me. They were securing dominance. To them, uncertainty itself is an enemy. The hall grew unervingly still. Every elder understood the implications. The last words of Section 2 settled upon them like cold stone, leaving an inescapable truth. This enemy did not merely resist hunters. They erased everything that threatened their control, even shadows. Silence clung to the Hall of Verdicts like a living thing, its weight pressing against every scaled throat and armored chest. The elders were not easily unsettled. They had heard confessions from hunters who battled star beasts, void serpents, and ancient machine guardians. Yet the account of humans had drained the chamber of its certainty. Grand Elder Vrantor exchanged a long, contemplative look with Elder Malrath before turning his gaze back to Ruun'Kav. The warrior swayed, exhausted, but he stood unaided now, refusing to collapse before judgment was rendered. His remaining eye burned with a mixture of defiance and despair. At last Vrantor spoke. Your record challenges our assumptions. The Dominion has classified new species countless times. All have fit into the established categories of behavior. Hunters, hiders, challengers, or prey. But humans, he paused, mandibles tightening. They appear to belong to none. Malrath paced in slow, deliberate steps, his clawed feet tapping against the stone with each measured thought. A species whose first instinct is not to defend but to ravage its own environment deliberately, he mused, is either catastrophically reckless or catastrophically formidable. His tone softened with something resembling fear. Which do you believe them to be? Ruun'Kav considered the question carefully. He had replayed the battlefield countless times during his agonizing return journey. The thunder of artillery, the inferno of scorched soil, the machine-driven logic of their movement, all formed a consistent truth. They are neither reckless nor mindless, he answered. They respond to unknown threats by expanding destruction until no threat remains. Their aggression is controlled. Their devastation is calculated. Murmurs rippled through the observing hunters. Dominion culture revered honor and precision, but never excess. To fight by leveling entire regions contradicted everything they understood about combat. Vrantor raised a hand, restoring quiet. Your evidence supports this assessment. Their machines, their coordination, their willingness to reshape terrain to destroy a single unseen enemy. These speak of a philosophy we have never encountered. A younger hunter from the viewing gallery stepped forward, his voice trembling with disbelief. Elders, surely such a species cannot thrive. A world cannot sustain endless devastation. Their actions must be exceptions, not norms. His naivety earned him a stern glare from Malrith. Ruun'Kav answered before the elders reprimanded the youth. Their world, Elistra, 4, still lives despite ongoing war. Humans endure conditions that would shatter most species. He hesitated, remembering the relentless pace of their foot soldiers. They do not merely adapt to hardship. They weaponize it. The hall's temperature seemed to drop. Even the torches lining the walls flickered as though uneasy. Vrantor stepped down from the dais, approaching Ruun'Kav with uncharacteristic solemnity. "Show us the final recording." Ruun'Kav nodded, activating a small holographic projector embedded in his ruined armor. Light spilled across the chamber, forming a hazy reconstruction of his final minutes on Elistra 4. The initial blasts thundered through the projection, followed by the unmistakable shapes of human aircraft sweeping across the sky. Their engines roared like beasts forged from metal and fury. Fires surged from their wings, blanketing entire sections of the forest. The projection shifted to reveal human infantry, their visors glowing faintly, their movements synchronized with mechanical precision. Even watching again, Ruun'Kav felt the same chill coil around his spine. In the hologram, one human paused, examining scorched ground for mere seconds before signaling others with a rapid gesture. Moments later, a barrage of explosives detonated along a slope he had once considered an escape route. When the recording ended, the room remained frozen in the blue afterglow. No one spoke. No one moved. Finally, Vrantor returned to the dais. His posture straightened as he prepared for a declaration that would shape the Dominion's future. "We have witnessed enough." His voice carried through the hall, steady yet uncharacteristically grave. Ruun'Kav's testimony and evidence confirm the existence of a species whose conduct makes traditional hunting impossible. Their resolve exceeds our expectations. Their destructive capacity surpasses our safeguards. Malrith joined him, lifting his staff. The Dominion has long upheld the hunt as sacred, but it is not sacred above wisdom. To pursue humans would be to invite obliteration. The gallery held its breath as the elders spoke in unison, their voices resonating with ritual authority. "Let it be recorded, humans, not to be hunted." The words echoed, final and absolute. Ruun'Kav closed his eye, relief and sorrow twisting within him. He had lost comrades to lesser foes, but never had he encountered a species that forced the Dominion to forbid pursuit entirely. The decision felt right, yet it left an unease lingering in the air, an implication left unspoken. As the hall slowly emptied, Vrantor remained seated, gazing at the now dark projection device. "We have chosen caution," he murmured to Malrith. "Yet something tells me our paths with humans are far from finished." Malrith nodded grimly. "Some prey are not meant to be pursued, and some hunters discover threats that change the course of empires. The story of humans, it seemed, had only begun.